right, welcome everybody. My name is Lisa Gregory. I am going to be leading today's meetup and podcast with 3 special guests, as well as other team members from the Event Professionals Network. Today's topic is on field events marketing trends for 2023. We really just are wanting to get the community together to talk about what's happening this year and how you guys can get more ROI on your events. Now I'd like to introduce our guests. So I'm going to start and hand it off to Adriana. If you want to introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Hi guys, I'm Adriana Gallivan. I work for Tecton. This is actually my 4th startup. So very experienced in the tech world, as well as the marketing world. I'm the senior demand gen manager. I have a strong background in events, and Tecton didn't have anybody to run demand gen as well as events. And so I was really excited to take the opportunity to kind of have everything under my umbrella, and continue the events program as we come back to in-person events. So super excited to be here.
Great. Thank you. And thanks for taking the time. We really appreciate it. Now I would like Katie to introduce herself from Tailscale.
Happy to. And I want to echo the excitement around in-person events. Oh, I'm so thankful, especially now that we're coming, events are hosting their 2nd in-person iteration since COVID for most of those big conferences. So I'm excited. I am focused on field marketing at Tailscale, and I have a background in DevRel and community. And this is my, or one of my first roles focused in marketing. So I'm really excited to learn from this webinar podcast dealio. So thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And Katie has a strong background on the community side, and the importance of community has grown in the last year. So we're going to hit on some reasons why you need to be engaging your community even more right now. And then we have our final special guest, and I also would say that this person is a bit of a unicorn. So we will explain why he's a unicorn in just a minute, but I'd like to introduce Josh. So Josh, you want to say hi?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm Josh Rector. I work alongside Adriana here at Tecton. I'm an enterprise account executive. Basically your standard sales guy. Yeah, excited to talk about field marketing and how we can do it and how we can do it better in 2023.
All right.
Why am I a unicorn? I don't know.
He's standard. Nothing standard about Josh. He's
all right. So we're going to actually address that first because we want to let Josh go about his day. Recently, I was at Snowflake Summit, and I don't know if anybody else was there, but it was a magical event, and there's multiple reasons why it was. But one of the main reasons for Tecton that it was is because of people like Josh, and Josh specifically. So the reason why Josh is here is because I want to hear from the unicorn himself on how he goes to these trade shows, pulls all of these leads in, and then goes back, works the leads, and provides that amazing ROI for the team. And so that's why I've invited him here. Every single field events marketer needs multiple Joshes, multiple unicorns, because we can only do so much, right? We plan the activations on site, we schedule everybody to be there to demo, but without a Josh, it's much harder for us to execute. So the way that we kind of do events is we have a grabber, the person who goes and gets the people to make sure they're talking to people at the booth, and we hand them off to Josh, and Josh just goes for it. He can tell you a little bit about his magic, and then people deep dive into demos, sign up for meetings, etc. So Josh, tell us, I mean, this is your time to brag. Tell us why that dance works so well with someone specifically like you, and how this team can partner with people at their companies to create this sort of unicorn experience, bring in leads, and build pipeline for their teams.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks. You did say, you make me blush. I'm kind of blushing. No, it's jokes aside, I appreciate the kind words. It was a super fun and super productive event, I believe. But I really think that the value that you're going to get out of the event starts well before the event, right? And so one of the things that that we were pretty intentional about here at Tecton beforehand, like in prepping for going to Snowflake, was we specifically came up with a targeted list of the companies and even people that we thought would be there that we really wanted to talk to. So I think kind of doing the legwork up front to say, who are the leads and the companies and the people even potentially that we want to talk to. And then we did like significant outreach. So not like 1 or 2 emails. Like it was the goal of the outreach was, I want them to know my name when I see them at the event, right? And so this looked like phone calls. This looked like, multiple emails, like not just 2, like 3 or 4. And so you don't want to inundate people the week before the event. So you kind of need to do that a couple, a month ahead, a couple months ahead. And so you just kind of have a drip, just getting your brand and your name out there. And so that was kind of the thing that was up front, the legwork that we did, right? And so I knew I was looking for people and people on our team. It wasn't just me, it was, and even you, Lisa, you were helping find the people. But everybody there at the booth knew who we wanted to talk to. And so that was key to before we even got there.
Yeah. And what you guys were specifically telling me, okay, that I see that company that's on our target list. And I was just there kind of helping be the grabber, right? And set up, I was because Adriana was at another show. So I was just there to help. And you really enabled me big time. I listened to you when you were doing your pitches, then I would repeat what you were saying and then check with you to make sure that I was saying it okay. And that relationship of you being willing to coach me and the rest of the team was invaluable. So how do you recommend as far as like meeting cadence? And I know you have another job too of doing some other stuff. So how do we work together as a cadence, like a month before? What do you recommend to kind of create that magic beforehand on all the shows? And some of these people are producing tons of shows and some people are producing just a few a year. What do you recommend?
Yeah, I think the sooner the better, right? And the earlier that you can kind of get together and kind of, get on the same sheet of music, if you will. So you can understand kind of what Tecton wants to drive from this meeting, and how can the field marketing team enable that, and how can you guys, help with that? And then what do we need in order to do that? Like, what are the specific things we need to put in place from a materials and collateral perspective, from a swag perspective, and all of that? Doing that early and doing that, touching base every couple of weeks as we get, a month or 2 out from the event is great. Like, I think the sooner the better. I don't think you can really start too early.
Yeah, I agree. And Adriana, also, you did an amazing pre-con, which is actually why I was like, we have to do an event professionals meetup on this, because, excuse my French, but your pre-con was kick ass, like literally like boom, boom, boom. And I was like, this girl knows exactly what she's doing. So tell me about your pre-con, why that was different, how you enabled your team, because once we got there, it was like, boom. And you had that same experience on site at the event you were at.
Yeah, so my first experience at my first tech company was running about 165 events a year. And so I had to get really good, really fast at starting things early. And so when I started at Tecton the first week of April, I started that week and took over that event to make sure that the sales team was enabled. They knew where they were supposed to be. I think as a field marketer, and really a marketer in general, like, our job is to make sure that the sales team has exactly what they need. They know where they're supposed to be. They don't have any questions when they hit the floor in Vegas or in SF, wherever the event is. And that really starts with like giving them all the logistics, right? Like helping them with getting their badges taken care of, making sure they know where they're staying, giving them the schedule super far in advance. So they're blocking their calendars. They know what their booth shift is. And then really like that pre-con is going through every single step of it and making sure that everybody's really clear on what the expectations are, what the goals are, where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be there, kind of what we're there to help with. Unfortunately, that week I wasn't able to be there because Data plus AI or Databricks and Snowflake had their events on the same days, but really making sure that everybody knows everything that they possibly need to know before the show, so that as soon as they land, they're ready to hit the ground running. And like Josh said, like he knew exactly the people that he was targeting. And I hope that in doing my job, I made it easier for him to just focus on that rather than everything else.
Yeah, you did.
100%. She
Yeah.
did awesome.
Yeah, it was lovely. We work with a lot of clients and your team was exceptional. Probably the best team I've ever worked with on site. So that's why you guys are here. So good job. I want to be able to let Josh go because we have so much to cover on this meetup, but any other tips, final words, Josh, before you head out?
Yeah, I'll just say that during the event, if you're looking at, if you want to know how your customer is going to get the most out of an event, you need to help them understand and you were really good at this, Lisa, be bold and assertive at the booth. Like, do not wait for people to come to you, right? And the way I feel comfortable doing that is just the mindset of I'm bringing value. Like Tecton adds value, whatever solution you're at, there's a value that you're adding. And so, yes, it may feel like you're interrupting somebody. Yes, you may feel like you're pulling them aside, but you're really potentially adding value to their day, if by nothing else, just informing them, but then also potentially also adding value to their career if it turns out to be a good opportunity. So be bold, be assertive, don't be reactive at the booth. And then the last thing I'll add is be detail oriented for the specific people that you know you're going to follow up with. So realize that these people are talking to potentially hundreds of vendors, right? And so you need to have a specific tailored outreach to them after the event that's going to help them remember you. And so you need to take good notes. Be sure that you've got something, a tag or something, like maybe you made a joke with this person and they laughed and y'all kidded about something. Reference that in your email back to them so that they remember you. So just be intentional about taking really good notes for the top prospects that you want to follow up with. But it was a great event. It was a pleasure to work alongside you.
Oh, thanks. Yes, and it was memorable. It was memorable on all sides. And we'll go into a little bit of why not just the booth experience was memorable, but why the overall experience for the event was memorable. All right, Josh, well, thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Thank y'all. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye, Josh. Thank you.
All right. Bye. Take care.
All right. So we have quite the agenda, but you guys also provided some stuff that you guys wanted to talk about. And you also graded yourselves as far as how good and how comfortable you feel in event marketing. So I am going to, there's some people that I'm going to hide this for confidentiality reasons, and then I'm going to share my screen. There's some people that just registered, so I don't have all the data here, but I'm going to share my screen here and kind of see how you guys rated yourselves. So this first one says, do you consider yourself an expert field marketer? So out of this, we had 34 people register, and you can see that we have quite a few starters that have registered, quite a few people in the middle, and then the most is probably like 6 to 7. And we have a few experts. So for those experts that are here, I know there's a few on there. Feel free to chime in. If you just want to listen, that's okay too. And then I'm going to do one quick sort here. So bear with me on the second question. You guys also graded yourselves on how well you're currently doing. So that graded a little bit higher on average, which is great. Lots of 8s. So you guys think you're doing a pretty good job. So if you have things to share, because there's a lot of people that will probably be watching this later. Feel free to chime in because it's super duper helpful. All right, so now I'm going to go and ask questions to our guests. First off, there is a secret potion for the people who are made to do this job, right? And if you're new, you might not know all of the special things that kind of produce this amazing event marketer, especially in the tech startup world. So Adriana, I would say you're a unicorn in that space. And Katie is now seeking to be that unicorn as she steps into this new role. So first, I'm going to ask Adriana, what do you think that those top like 3 things, you can list more if you want, that are required to be a amazing events field events marketer?
Yeah, so you're right. It takes a special person to be able to do events. And I think that one of the first things that is probably the most important, and I always look for this when I'm interviewing places, or if I'm, I'm interviewing to work somewhere, is the relationship between field marketing and the sales team, and field marketing and the sales executives. It's probably the most important relationship you have, because you have to get so much buy-in from sales leadership and the sales team to make sure that the events are successful. There's, as a field marketer, you can be as an expert in that field, but for the most part, like, we're not on the phones with customers. We're not expected to know every single technical detail about the industry or what we're selling. And so making sure that you have that trust with the sales team, that no matter if you can be in an event or not, that the event is going to be executed the way that you would execute an event, super, super, super important. So definitely making sure that you're building really strong relationships with the sales team and sales leadership, super important. Like Josh said, starting early. So I usually start my planning right around now for next year. And that comes with, making sure that if budgeting isn't there, that we're working towards that. Looking at new swag options, making sure that we've got everything prepared so that if and when a situation comes up, there's an emergency, which there always is with every event. There's going to be some 911 that you're not expecting, that you can jump on that, and that everything else is kind of in line. And then really just making sure that you have the right team on site is critical. This past event cycle was my first with Tecton, and so I was able to meet my team as well as kind of get a ton of feedback about the Snowflake team. And so making sure that you have people that you can trust on site, and then enabling those people like Josh, and we had somebody else on site at Snowflake that's helping me with an event at the end of this month that can help you train everybody else to level up. So making sure that, you're building confidence within the sales team, but also saying, like, we know that you're great, but we want to level this up. We're scaling the program. So, we want Josh to be the lead on this, and not being afraid to make those decisions and then communicate it with the sales team. But I think honestly, everything comes back to the relationship with the sales team.
Yeah, agreed. Those communications. And it's not just you, it's the whole marketing team. That's really key. Katie, anything to add as you dive into your new role?
Yeah, I was relating when you were speaking about that every event has a 911. Like, yes, I think working in events has surely expanded my capacity for patience, which is a good thing, a very good thing. And then furthermore too, I am learning to be really good at differentiating the difference between important and urgent, because a lot of times with events, I think everything tends to like feel urgent, but being able to separate those two and prioritize work has been something that I've been working on, and has really helped helped everything.
Amazing. Yeah, no, that's very true. Anybody else have anything to add on, qualities that an exceptional field events marketer has that really make for good ROI and results for the team. Anyway.
Being able to keep your head in those situations and continuing to be a pleasure to work with goes a long way for having your booth staff in the palm of your hand. And that's really what you need, is you're like orchestrating this huge event. And part of that is like the people management. So I've seen some cool cucumbers in crisis. So kudos to all of you.
Yeah. Well, there's different ways to say, like, because this is what I experience a lot at booths, or I walk by and I see booths, right? It's like, well, are you there to sell and like drum up leads, or are you there to be on your cell phone? So a grumpy event person will be like, put your cell phone down, or, so there is that cool cucumber is 100% true. There's a lot of ways to empower your team, make them feel appreciated, like you're doing great things. And one thing is to send that post-show daily list. So to download the list at the end of the day, get everybody surrounding it, making sure that all the leads, number one, came in, the lead scanner is actually working properly. Because at Black Hat, I heard that wasn't the case. And then making sure that notes get in there, empowering the team, talking about your wins at the end of the day, talking about dinners the day before. I even like shot like little videos and put them on Slack to be like, hey, here's how you get to our booth. Little things just to make their life a lot easier to, I think, go a long way to creating a good experience on site, which helps with your ROI.
And one thing that we do also for budgetary purposes, if you are tight, which I think we all are at this point, is snapping pictures of people's badges, and then I take the responsibility at the end of the night to upload them from my device. So really just making sure that you're the most available person on site to help that process work through. And one thing I'll add as a quality, I think that you have to be organized, but not to a fault. You have to be okay with like a ton of chaos and for things to slip and for things to move. And so I think, keeping organization is really important, and having kind of a process for that, but not being so organized that you don't have room for the 911s that come in, or the salesperson who you've told 15 times what hotel they're staying at, and they call you when they land and say, what hotel am I staying at?
Yeah. And I don't know if you guys have done this. I'm going to see if I can find something on my phone. But I often take pictures of, like, if I'm taking pictures of a badge, I will take notes on top of the pictures. I'm going to see if I can find one. Because I can't score it right away, right? So I take the picture and then I snap it, and then I write notes on top of it just with my finger, like cold, hot, spoke with so-and-so. That way, when I go into the lead scanner and I'm scanning all those, because it happens quick, right? It's the reception, things are coming in. Then I know how to put those notes in, and I don't forget any of those. I might have deleted them all from Snowflake, but I'm going to see if I can find one. But that's a tip that I came up with at AWS reInvent because it was just bonkers last year. Let's see. I don't know if I have any to show. I think I might have deleted them all. Yeah, I think I did. Well, talking about budget, let's go into that, because that was one of the questions that somebody asked, is with lean budgets and budget scrutiny on everything. How are you guys handling that? Because everything's about 25% more expensive. I mean, just to send an extra box is ridiculous. So how are you guys handling that? And then how are you communicating that to your managers and your team to make sure before you sign up for all these events that your team is aware of what's going to happen with the budget?
I think prioritizing, making sure that you're understanding what's important to the sales team. Is it outside activations? Is it sending more people? Like, what's that allocation look like? And so for each event, I go through an exercise with sales leadership, with my leadership, and really talk through, is this an event where we think that there's going to be a good case to do an executive dinner, a happy hour, partner with somebody outside of the event rather than buy extra badges. Because, if we have a big concentration of employees in SF and in New York. So if I'm having an event in SF, makes sense to just go with the badges that either come with the booth or buy a couple of extra, and then do something outside of the event, schedule meetings, book a meeting room at a hotel close by, buy out a room in a restaurant or something like that. And so I think having that communication with the sales team and figuring out what's most important to them in that circumstance is super important, especially if it's your first time at an event. You have to kind of rely, and you don't have historical data. You kind of just have to rely on, this is what our feeling is. We're going to try this out.
Yep.
Mhm.
Katie, anything to add?
Yeah, a lot with Tailscale in particular, a lot of the events, well, all of the events we're going to right now are our first time with these events. And when we were planning for the rest of the year, when I joined the marketing team, we did an exercise where we budgeted out every event and then padded each budget, because obviously we'd rather come in under than, be over. And that was an interesting exercise. And yeah, it is a little bit going off of a feeling and leaning into other folks' experience from previous companies going to those events and everything. Yeah, we're figuring that out for sure.
Well, and I think
Yeah.
Try not to cry through it as our budget's getting cut.
Yeah, exactly.
I think one of the trends too is we're sending less people, and we need the leadership to listen more closely. So rather than before, it was kind of like, oh, so-and-so needs to go, so-and-so needs to go. Helping your manager understand upfront that you do actually need the power to be able to say no right now to make all the other events and activities work to get the ROI. Because really you're being, at the end of the day, you're being, the one that's making sure that ROI comes in. The days before COVID are totally different, where it's like, well, let's go get a limo for the night and run around and go to an expensive dinner and get all this. Those days are over. So every single thing is being scrutinized. So making sure that going in, the people kind of know like, hey, we're purposely only having 4 people at this show. What does that look like in advance? How is that different? How are you going to have lunch? How are you going to have other sales meetings? Because before I'd always invite sales and they're like, well, I gotta go, I've got a sales meeting. And there was more people to pad them. They could multitask during the show a little bit more. Now that's not as possible. And AWS reInvent, for example, is 10 times more expensive than it has been ever before. A lot of people aren't going to sponsor it this year. That doesn't mean that you can't piggyback off of some of these shows. So when you create your field event marketing strategy, don't just look at the shows that you're going to go to. Look at all the shows in the portfolio. There's a huge group of people that are following all of those hashtags and kind of, still integrating with AWS, still need your technology, but there's ways to market to them without having to have a booth. That could be a party. It could just be a social media campaign. It could be a dinner on site. It could be lots of different things. So when your leadership just comes to you and says, oh, we're not going to AWS reInvent, or we're not going to these big shows, we're not spending that big money, no can always be turned into some sort of yes. It just has to look different. So the budget creativity is needed this year more than ever. All right, any other comments on budgets, how to deal with it? I know swag's being handled differently. People aren't spending as much on swag. If you're shipping swag, light items are better. Smaller items are better. Any other tips on budget?
I think people are getting sick of the cheapy swag, right?
Uh-huh.
Like, how many branded pens do you really need? Like, is anybody actually going to put a brand that's not theirs, business business card holder on the back of their phone. Like, no. So we're going for quality over quantity, making sure that the stuff that we're using is really good, investing more in like gifting rather than just giving away swag, making the raffle prizes nicer rather than, investing in cheaper swag. So that's definitely something that we've put a lot of consideration into.
Yeah,
Yeah.
us too.
Anyone else?